Robert Jardin, and I'm a navigator and recovery coach at Fishing Partnership Support Services. Welcome to the Fishing Partnership Narcan Education and Training Session. Our goals are to help fishing workers understand how we approach the opioid epidemic and what services we offer. We also want to reduce the stigma that often goes along with substance use disorder and help you feel comfortable hearing and talking about opioids and Narcan. We know that fishermen are reluctant to talk about opioids because we did a study with UMass Lowell and the results were clear. Fishermen feel like they're isolated and misunderstood. One reason why they don't want to talk about opioids is because they're worried captains will find out and not hire them. Of course, fishermen don't want to be thought of having alcohol and drug problems. Just like everyone outside of the fishing industry, most fishermen have never and will never suffer from substance use disorder. But we also know that fishermen are 5 times more likely to die of an opioid overdose than the average Massachusetts worker. We owe it to our friends, co-workers, families, and communities to learn what we can do to help them. Like all of the Fishing Partnership services, we began this program because the fishing community asked for it. A fisherman whose stepson died of an opioid overdose in his arms asked us to find a way to address opioid use disorder. Life is tougher for fishermen. We know that fishermen's incomes go up and down from month to month and even year to year. Because of this, half the fishermen are eligible for different health plans every year. This makes it very hard for fishermen to stay insured. And you need health insurance so you can afford to go to the doctor and treat injuries before they get too bad, and afford treatment programs if you need them. Also, to earn a living, fishermen depend on a lot of things outside of their control, like the price of bait, fuel, and foreign imports. This is really stressful, and fishermen spend days, even weeks at sea, which can lead them to feeling alone and less connected to their community and sometimes family. Sadly, fishermen suffer from depression at higher rates than other people. It's important to know that fishermen are not alone. Last year, there were more deaths in the U.S. due to opioid overdoses than car crashes. In one of the first studies of opioid deaths among workers in Massachusetts, the Department of Public Health found that certain groups of workers face a much higher risk of dying from an opioid overdose. These workers share certain risk factors: high rates of work-related injuries and illness, lower availability of paid sick leave, and lower job security. Fishermen have all these risk factors. Other high-risk workers include construction workers, farmers, loggers, garbage men, roofers, and for women, health workers and food service workers. Around the country, these industries have over 20 million workers. As you might expect, fishermen have a higher rate of back pain, neck pain, and arthritis. But like other independent workers, fishermen don't get vacation days or sick days. If you don't work, you don't earn a living. And if they don't show up for work, they may not ever get a job with that captain again. There is no job security. Of course, they prescribe pain medications so they can work through these injuries. Your back is killing you and you go to the doctor, your doctor prescribes you opioids and you take them. It still hurts, so you take an extra one. By the end of a long trip, you might be dependent on them. This is pretty common. According to the CDC, around 25% of people prescribed opioid painkillers misuse them, and around 10% develop an opioid use disorder. Also, pills are expensive on the street, and heroin is cheap and widespread. It's not surprising that 75% of new heroin users started with prescription pain meds. Opioid use disorder and overdose are common, and we need to protect ourselves and our friends and our families. We need to learn to talk about this epidemic without shame. Research shows that addiction is a disease that can be treated, and that most people eventually recover. Nearly 10% of American adults have recovered from substance use disorder. That's over 22 million people. Many of us just never talk about it. And we know that the most effective treatment for substance use disorder is a combination of medicine, mental health services, and recovery support. Fishing Partnership navigators are highly trained to help you and your families find and connect with all of these services. At Fishing Partnership, we approach this from multiple angles, including educating the fishing community, making ergonomics a course part of our first aid and CPR certification course, which helps us lower the risk of getting injured and needing opioid painkillers. Offering Narcan training so vessels can carry Narcan in their first aid kits and the crew know how to use it. Helping fishermen and their families access health insurance, which is required for many treatments. Providing recovery coaches like myself and my colleague Deb, who will speak next, to help guide fishermen in their recovery. And hosting our peer-to-peer support group, Oceans of Recovery, every week, to give fishermen support from people who really understand them. We can do something. You can help people with opioid use disorder by learning how to reverse an overdose. Every fisherman needs to know how to use Narcan, and every boat's first aid kit should have Narcan. Too many fishermen are dying, and rehab is much more successful when the fisherman is alive. Plus, we owe it to each other and other mariners. Fishermen are often the first responders at sea. If you don't need the Narcan, another mariner near you might. Over the past few years, opioid deaths have decreased, something that is linked to more community members learning about and carrying Narcan. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Deb. She'll talk about what an overdose is and how you can use Narcan to help someone who is overdosing.
Hi, my name is Deb Kelsey, and I'm a navigator and recovery coach for Fishing Partnership Support Services. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share how to recognize an overdose, what Narcan is, and how to administer it. The signs of an overdose can include slow or labored breathing, unusual sleepiness or unresponsiveness. The skin around the lips may be turning blue or gray. You may also hear a gurgling sound. If you suspect someone is overdosing, the first thing to do is call 911 on land or the Coast Guard at sea. Next, you should administer Narcan. Narcan, or naloxone, which is its generic name, is a medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. Opioids include oxycodone, codeine, fentanyl, and heroin. Opioids attach to breathing receptors in the brain, which causes people to stop breathing when they overdose. When Narcan is administered within 3 to 5 minutes, it knocks the opioid off the receptors, allowing the person to begin breathing again. Narcan works by enabling breathing. That's all it does. Narcan cannot hurt someone if given to a non-opioid overdose. In fact, if Narcan were given to someone who doesn't use opioids, the worst side effect would be a wet nose. It is also not harmful to children or animals. If you can believe it, I know a woman whose dog got into her stash when she was in the backyard mowing the lawn. She came in to find him on the kitchen floor, not breathing, and she used Narcan to revive him. Let's talk about when to use Narcan. You should give Narcan anytime someone is showing signs of an overdose, even if you do not know what drugs they've taken. This is especially important because fentanyl, a very strong man-made opioid, is now added to many drugs, including cocaine and pills. Now, I'll explain how to use Narcan and demonstrate it. First, attempt to stimulate the person you suspect is overdosing. Physical stimulation should include a sternum rub. With a sternum rub, you make a fist with one hand, and then you place your knuckles on the center of the person's sternum. That's their chest. Next, you move your hand up and down a few times using moderate pressure. This is the best way to physically stimulate someone because it's really uncomfortable. So most conscious people will respond to it. If the person responds to either verbal or physical stimulation, then they are not overdosing. You should monitor and observe this person. If they do not respond to the sternum rub, then they are overdosing and you should give Narcan. Now I'll talk about how to give Narcan. It's important to know that you might need to give more than one dose of Narcan because fentanyl is really strong and it is in so many drugs. For the first dose, open the Narcan package, place the tip into one nostril, and push the pump. In non-COVID times, you would then give 2 rescue breaths. During the COVID pandemic, you can give the breaths using a medical plastic resuscitation mask. If you do not have one or you're uncomfortable possibly being exposed to COVID, don't do the rescue breaths. Narcan takes at least 3 minutes to work. So wait to see if the person responds. If they don't, you need to give them another dose. Place the tip into the other nostril and push the pump. Give another 2 rescue breaths if you have a resuscitation mask and feel comfortable doing it. Narcan can wear off, and the opioids move back to the receptors and can cause another overdose. If for some reason you cannot stay for first responders, please lay the person in the recovery position, which I will demonstrate. The recovery position is when the person is placed on their left side with their left arm moved up and below their head. The right leg is crossed over the left leg. This position helps someone who is unconscious and breathing avoid choking and aspirating fluid into their lungs. Last but not least, we are all first responders in our community and on the waterfront. The Good Samaritan law in Massachusetts protects us for acting as first responders, and it protects people who overdose or who seek help for someone overdosing from being charged or prosecuted for simple drug possession. In Massachusetts, it does not protect people from being arrested for other offenses, such as selling or trafficking drugs or possessing a weapon or existing warrants. The laws in other states and in federal waters may differ. Finally, I'm going to discuss where to get Narcan or direct someone who is interested. If you live in Massachusetts, Fishing Partnership can help you access Narcan. The survey at the end of this video will ensure that you understand how to recognize an overdose and how to administer Narcan. It also allows you to tell us if you're interested in having Fishing Partnership deliver Narcan to you or make a referral to a local organization. If you would prefer to get your own Narcan, all pharmacies in Massachusetts are required by law to stock and dispense Narcan to people without a prescription. Mass Health and most commercial insurers should cover the full cost of Narcan. If you are a Massachusetts resident and you do not have health insurance, contact a Fishing Partnership navigator to learn more about your options. If you're in another state, you can purchase Narcan without a prescription at most major pharmacies such as CVS or Walgreens. If you need to locate Narcan at little to no cost, contact your local Department of Health. If you need to sign up for health insurance outside of Massachusetts, go to www.healthcare.gov to find a navigator near you. Visit our website at www.fishingpartnership.org/Narcan to see a list of navigators and how to get in touch with them. You can also complete our survey and request Narcan on that page.